What if I told you that Monkey D, Luffy, the cheerful pirate with a rubbery body, has more transformations than you might think? From his earliest fight against the Marines to taking on emperors like Kaido, Luffy's journey to becoming the king of the pirates has seen him develop some absolutely insane powers. But which of his forms is the most powerful? And how do they stack up against each other? Today we're ranking all of Luffy's transformations by strength from his early game-changer abilities to his most godlike forms. Get ready, because this list is going to stretch your imagination, pun intended. Let's set sail. Number 11, Base Luffy. Yeah, we're starting at the very beginning. Luffy's regular, non-boosted form is his default state. Now, don't get me wrong, Luffy's no slouch even in his base form. He's incredibly strong, fast, and his durability is nothing to laugh at. I mean, he's literally made of rubber, so things like bullets and blunt attacks just bounce right off him. Even Haki-infused punches are less effective because of his body's natural resistance. However, Base Luffy lacks the explosive power of his more advanced forms. He can pack a punch, but when you put him up against his later abilities, well, let's just say he wouldn't be winning a fight against himself. Still, Base Luffy has given us some classic moments. Remember his first real victory against Arlong. The way he slammed through that tower was epic. Number 10, Afro Luffy. Okay, I know what you're thinking, Afro Luffy, seriously. But hear me out. This form might be a bit of a gag, but it's got heart. During the Davy Back Fight arc, Luffy donned a glorious afro wig and embraced his inner boxer. And let's not forget, according to Usopp, the afro makes you stronger. While it's obviously a joke, Luffy's bout with Foxy showed us that even without gear enhancements, he can adapt to different fighting styles. Is Afro Luffy stronger than Base Luffy? Technically not, but we've got to give it bonus points for style, right? Plus, any form that can survive Foxy's Noro Beam deserves at least a little recognition. But, okay, moving on from the afro. Number 9, Gear Second. Now we're heating up literally. Gear Second is the form where Luffy really starts to show the creative uses of his devil fruit powers. By pumping his blood at superhuman speeds, he can drastically increase his physical abilities. His punches and kicks become faster and more powerful, his reflexes sharpen, and he even gives off steam like a human engine. The first time Luffy unleashed Gear Second against Blueno in Enies lobby, it was a jaw-dropping moment. Suddenly, Luffy wasn't just a goofy pirate anymore, he was a serious threat. This form allowed him to fight against the CP9 agents, who were leagues above anything he had faced before. But despite its speed and power, Gear Second has its downsides. The strain on Luffy's body is immense, especially early on when using this form would leave him winded and exhausted. Over time, he's learned to control it better, but in the grand hierarchy of his transformations, Gear Second has been overshadowed by later, even crazier abilities. Number 8, Gear Third. And now we're talking size. Gear Third takes Luffy's rubber powers and amps them up literally. By inflating his bones, Luffy can turn his limbs into massive weaponized bludgeons. His punches and kicks become gigantic, with enough force to shatter buildings and send enemies flying. Remember when he used Gear Third to punch through a marine battleship during the Enies lobby arc? That was insane. The trade-off, however, is speed. Gear Third sacrifices a lot of the agility that makes Gear Second so formidable, and after using it, Luffy would shrink down to chibi size for a while, completely defenseless. This drawback limited its usability in long battles, although Luffy has since learned to mitigate this side effect with haki and better control. Gear Third is like the sledgehammer in Luffy's arsenal. When you need something big to go down, you bring out the big guns. But as you'll see, Luffy's toolkit only gets more devastating from here. Number 7, Nightmare Luffy. One of the wildest transformations in the series, Nightmare Luffy is what happens when you combine Luffy with the shadows of 100 powerful warriors. During the Thriller Bark arc, Luffy briefly becomes this hulking beast to take on the towering zombie Oars. Covered in blue skin and with a bodybuilder's physique, Nightmare Luffy is a temporary power boost that lets him go toe-to-toe with a monster. But while this form is incredibly powerful, it's also not truly Luffy, it's more like a borrowed power-up. Still, it's one of the few times Luffy has been able to outmuscle an opponent purely with brute force rather than clever tactics. It's not a form he can tap into at will, but when it happened, it was one of the most epic moments in Thriller Bark. Number 6, Boundman Gear Fourth. Okay, here's where things get serious. Gear Fourth, specifically the Boundman form, is one of Luffy's strongest and most iconic transformations. When he first activated this during the Dressrosa arc against Doflamingo, fans everywhere lost their minds. So by inflating his muscles and coating himself in haki, Luffy turns into a bouncing rubber wrecking ball. His punches have the power of cannons, and his speed, despite his size, is still incredibly fast. Boundman is a wild, unpredictable form. Luffy's constantly bouncing and his attacks can hit from all sorts of bizarre angles. It's like trying to fight a super-powered rubber ball that's out of control. Boundman gave Luffy the strength to go head-to-head with Doflamingo and later Cracker and even Kaido, although it's not without its weaknesses. The form's reliance on constant movement makes it hard to land precise attacks, and the Haki drain limits how long Luffy can stay in this state. But let's be honest, it's still one of the coolest forms we've seen. Number 5, Tankman Gear 4th. Now we're getting into the more specialized forms of Gear 4th. Tankman is essentially a defensive variation of Boundman. Instead of focusing on speed and offense, Tankman is all about durability. By inflating his body even more, Luffy becomes an immovable object that can absorb blows and launch enemies with even more force. We only really saw this form in action against Cracker, where Luffy's ability to eat endlessly played a part in its activation. Seriously, Cracker's attacks just bounced off and Luffy's counterattack sent him flying into the horizon. While Tankman doesn't have the same versatility or speed as Boundman, its raw power and defensive capabilities make it a tough form to beat. Number 4, Snakeman Gear 4th. Snakeman is a slick, fast, and adaptive version of Gear 4th. Luffy debuted this form in his fight against Katakuri, one of the most intense battles of the whole Cake Island arc. Unlike Boundman, which is all about overwhelming power, Snakeman focuses on speed and unpredictability. Luffy's punches in this form stretch and curve in ways that make them nearly impossible to dodge. What's incredible about Snakeman is that the longer the fight goes on, the faster and more unpredictable Luffy's attacks become. This allowed him to outpace Katakuri's legendary observation Haki, which is no small feat. It's a perfect counter for opponents who rely on dodging and counterattacks, making Snakeman one of Luffy's most dangerous forms. But despite its speed, Snakeman still lacks the sheer power of Boundman, and like all Gear 4th forms, it's taxing on Luffy's body. Still, when it comes to fast-paced battles, Snakeman is a total game changer. Number 3, Gear 5th Sun God Nika. Now we're entering the God tier. Gear 5th, also known as Luffy's Sun God Nika form, is his most recent and arguably most mind-blowing transformation. This is where the true nature of Luffy's Devil Fruit. By tapping into the mythical Zoan Fruit's full power, Luffy becomes something out of a cartoon, a literal toon force, capable of bending the laws of physics and reality to his will. In Gear 5th, Luffy's body becomes incredibly malleable, allowing him to stretch, expand, and change shape in ways that defy logic. He can also affect the environment around him, turning objects like Kaido's dragon form into rubber, and even bouncing back attacks like a trampoline. This form is pure chaos. Luffy's imagination seems to be the only limit, and the freedom it gives him is reminiscent of the mythical sun god's ability to bring joy and liberation. However, this form is so overpowered that it's hard to rank in comparison to his other forms. It's less about raw strength and more about the freedom to manipulate the world around him. It's still new, so we don't know all its limits yet, but Gear 5th is undoubtedly one of the craziest transformations in anime history. Number 2, Advanced Conqueror's Haki Luffy. Even though this isn't technically a transformation, Luffy's mastery of Advanced Conqueror's Haki deserves a spot near the top of the list. With this ability, Luffy can infuse his attacks with the supreme willpower of a king, allowing him to deal devastating blows without even making physical contact. The force of his will is so strong that it can split the sky, something only the most powerful figures in One Piece like Shanks and Whitebeard are capable of. This Haki upgrade gives Luffy a massive power boost and allows him to stand toe-to-toe with the likes of Kaido and Big Mom. In fact, his mastery of this technique was a turning point in his battle against Kaido, pushing Luffy closer than ever to becoming the Pirate King. Number 1, Gear 5th Awakened Nika form. Yep, we're back to Gear 5th, but this time it's fully awakened. After mastering his Devil Fruit's awakening, Luffy's abilities have gone beyond even the wildest expectations. In this form, Luffy's body becomes a conduit for freedom, allowing him to reshape the battlefield in any way he sees fit. Whether it's turning the ground into rubber or manipulating his own body into gigantic proportions, Awakened Gear 5th Luffy is a force of nature. This form gave Luffy the strength to battle Kaido at his absolute peak, making it his most powerful transformation yet. It's playful, ridiculous, and incredibly dangerous all at once. Luffy has finally reached a level where he can rival the Emperors of the Sea, and there's no telling how much stronger he'll become as he continues to master his powers. And that's the list. From the classic Gear 2nd all the way to the godlike Gear 5th, Luffy's transformations have defined his growth as a pirate and as a fighter. Every form tells a part of his journey, from the goofy, determined boy who set out to find the One Piece to the future king of the pirates. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more One Piece content, and let me know in the comments what's your favorite Luffy form. Did we miss any hidden gems? Let's talk about it. And don't forget to check out our other videos. More epic battles and theories are just a click away. Thanks for watching. See you on the Grand Line.